All right, in this tutorial we're going to take our arch, which we have UV unwrapped, we're going to bring it into Unreal. So if I come in here, I have my arch selected, I have named it arch. If I go to Unwrap UVW and open the UV editor, right, see it's crazy because everything's tiled, right? And if I change from map channel 1 to map channel 2 but say abandon, we'll see that I have a unique UV layout because we went through and we created unique UV layouts at the end of the unwrap process. All right, so one thing we want to do here is I'm going to go out here to the quad view. I'm going to put a FFD 2x2x2 on. I'm going to grab the control points. If you grab everything at the top and go to move, you want to make sure that it goes all the way up to 400. You want to make sure the bottom row sits at 0. You want to make sure the right side goes to 200 and the left side as well goes to -200. And there we go. And then if we grab everything, you want to make sure that the Y value is at 0. Okay. This means that our arch is going to fit nicely in a nice little grid space there, right? 4x4. All right, I'm going to right click and convert to edit poly. I'll put an extra edit poly on it. Copy the name, say File, Export Selected, and I'm going to navigate to my Arch folder. I'm just going to call Arch, save, say OK. I'm going to go back to my Unreal project. Now I've been making various different things, putting them in props. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to right click and say New Folder, Building, and open that up. And inside here, I'm going to right click and import. And this time I'm going to go up to the arch. I'm going to select the arch mesh and the 3 textures that I have. Now, if you only have the brick shiny and the trim, that's fine. I have the wood here, so I'm going to might as well bring that in as well. I'm going to say open. I'm going to go with all my default settings from before and hit import all. And there we go. If I double click, open the arch, there it is. All right, pretty cool. If we look and it's the light map coordinate index, if I go to UV, there's my tiling UVs. Anything that's red just means it goes outside of 0 to 1, which is to be expected when we have a tiling mesh like this. But UV1, everything is nice and clean inside there, and that's why UV1 is set to be our light maps. All right, so you can see here, this object has 2 materials, just like the banner. So I'm going to right click anywhere and say new material. I'm going to do M_BC and open that up. And so I'm going to build a parent material. And it's going to be a parent material for anything. Oops, I don't know why that automatically scrolled down. That was weird. But this parent material is going to be for anything where you only have a diffuse. So I'm going to click and drag that in, right click on it, say convert to parameter, call this BC. I'm just going to drag the RGB and plug that into base color. Now by default, this thing's going to be really shiny. So we want to come over here, right click, go to constants, and just drag in a constant, or just click and it appears. I'm going to right click, convert to parameter, and call this roughness. And I'm going to plug this into the roughness. You'll see now that my object is very, very smooth and shiny, very reflective. That's because if I click and expand that, you see that this is black, right? So black means your object is very smooth. So if I come over to the details and change my default value to 1, now that means my object is very rough. If I set to like 0.9 or like 0.5, right, it's sort of shiny, right? And right now it's very generic because it is just, because you only have a base color, you're not going to get the best possible results. Right? Ideally, you want to get materials out of substance, which won't work when we have a tiling object, and you're going to need to use my substance hack to bake out your own or find them online. But we could adjust these. Maybe we'll set to like 0.9 so it gets just a little bit of highlight. And then we'll just hit save. It does show a color here. That's really not important, right? It's really only looking at the grayscale value. And those are really the only ones you need. Out of habit, I tend to make a one more constant, and I convert that to a parameter, and I set that to metallic. If I could spell metallic, plug that in, and that we leave at just black, right, at a value of 0, because that means there's nothing metallic. But if you were to may have something that should have a metallic surface, maybe you'd want to turn that up a little bit. But now we just save this. All right, so now I'm going to select my brick shiny. I'm going to right click, say rename, and then copy the name. And over here in the negative space where I don't have something, I'm going to say material instance. I would do mi underscore brick shiny and just get rid of the end of it, and then open that up. Now I can reference this as the parent, not the physical material, but it's the parent. And there you go. If I turn on the BC, I could always change that. I don't need to change it though, so I hit save. It's now the same thing, right? If I have my trim, I can right click on the mi, the material instance version, say duplicate. I'll call this mi underscore trim, and then right click, duplicate mi underscore wood, which I'm going to make because I brought it in, even though I'm not really using it. So you can hold control to click on more than one and then hit enter and it'll open them both up. So let's see, this should be the trim. I make the screen in the back larger, smaller a lot, just to make it easier to view stuff. So if you haven't already, make sure that base color is checked so that you can change it. You can plug your trim in there and save it. And if I come to the wood, I can drag that in as well and save that. And there we go. Now I have my material instances. If I open up my arch, I can plug those in. And if you're not sure where they go, you could click highlight or isolate. Either one works. So I'll plug in my material. I'll plug in my material instance. And there we go. There's my arch. So I showed you how to build custom collision geometry. So if you did want to build collision geometry for this, you certainly could. That's not something I'm going to require. I'm going to hit save, close this. Now, before you bring in the arch, go ahead and turn on the grid and set the grid set snap to 100. All right, and I'm going to drag in my arch. Now that's going to snap to 100, which means it's going to go underneath this ground because this default ground does not sit at 100. And that's fine for now because we're going to bring in our own floor pieces when we build them and change them up. I'm going to set my grid to, or my angle snap to 45. There we go. Now there's a couple of ways you can if you hold Alt, if you switch to move, if you switch to move and hold Alt and drag, it'll clone whatever you have selected. If you copy and paste by doing Control-C, Control-V on your keyboard, that copy and paste as well. And so the reason we made sure our object fit in a 400 by 400 grid is so that these areas wouldn't be overlapping. This is how we can start to go through. I could even copy and paste. If I go down to my props, I could replace this one by dragging the icon of the column over there. That means I've replaced it with a column. Now I have columns in between, right? And now you see, because my column doesn't quite, it's a little bit taller, it actually doesn't overlap with that, which is interesting. If I bring this out a little bit, I'm going to have that kind of sitting out a little bit. I'll drag it over. But the next thing we're going to bring in is our corridor pieces and then eventually our room pieces, and we'll start to build structures with them, utilizing the grid, making sure that things easily come in. All right. So that's it. Now I brought in my arch and I have my primary material set up. What I did was I right-clicked and said Browse to Asset to find it. There we go. There's my arch. All right. If I want, I can set to 50. It'll be closer to the ground. All right. But when you're placing your main pieces, you want to make sure you have those on there. All right. That's it for the bringing in this object with tiling textures with only a diffuse.